Hello everyone and welcome. Tonight we're going to be playing some Magic the Gathering and we're going to be hopping in a Legacy competitive league. We're going to be giving Blue-Black Death Shadow another spin and another go for our money here. This is the deck I've been kind of toying around with and playing a little bit here in Legacy. We have an event coming up next weekend and I would really like to decide what I should play. Right now it's kind of looking like it's either going to be this or it's going to be a Black-Red Reanimator deck unless something else kind of tickles my fancy here in the course of the next week. This is a relatively stock list. This is what people have been playing right now. Your main deck is pretty standard. Your sideboard, there's a couple small tweaks. The sideboard, we're going to be playing 2 Ratchet Bombs instead of the Thronogeths that you've been seeing popping up. Thronogeth is just incredibly narrow. It's mainly there to answer Chalice of the Void. Ratchet Bomb also does the same thing. Ratchet Bomb also answers Chalice of the Void, and it can double up for removal in the mirror, or it can also answer like a Blood Moon in a worst case scenario. Outside of that, the rest of this deck is fairly stock. It has been around for a couple weeks now. People have seen what's going on. We are going to hop in our league here and we're going to see how it goes. While we're sitting here hanging out, I kind of wish, one thing I do wish Magic Online would make a change is these guys like the trophy leaders. It'd be nice to be able to see what decks they're actually playing. I know our top guy here is a Reanimator player, but outside of that, these other guys, you have no idea what everyone's playing, and they don't publish a lot of the lists now. That would be something that I would personally like to see them change, and I know a lot of other people would too, but they've been erring on the side of not publishing the lists. This, unfortunately, is going to be a mulligan, so that's a good place to start. This hand is just unkeepable with 5 lands. And then we go to a 0-lander. Excellent. So we are... what are we on this game? We're on the draw. This deck only plays 18 land. As much as I would like to try and keep this hand, I mean, we have the Scry on the draw, and we have the Street Wraith, the cycle. If we hit a land, we can preordain. So I don't think it's totally insane to keep this hand. But I guess we'll go to 5. Alright, this is pretty much the same thing, except we know we have our lands. Our opponent is also on 6, so that's at least helpful. This Brainstorm we will keep on top. Alright, looks like we're possibly playing a mirror match here. This could also be the Grixis control deck. Those are definitely the first 2 decks that popped to mind. Alright, so they decide to take the Stubborn Denial. The fact that they're taking the Stubborn Denial, I mean, this could be a combo deck. This could be Ad Nauseam Tendrils. If it was a fair deck, I would assume they're taking probably the Preordain there. These cards are both not very good, but I will take the days just in case. Ideally, we're trying to find a threat here to speed up our game. I'm actually going to hold on to this days right now. This is normally would have been a pretty good target, but I kind of want to keep our land in play for this brainstorm. This main phase brainstorm like this kind of it's definitely making me think that this could be ad nauseum. Yeah, that's what it looks like. So drawing Delver there makes this a little more interesting. The plan was just to brainstorm and then fetch. It would allow us to shuffle away Fatal Push and some other card. But now that we drew Delver, we just might be playing Delver here. We still have access to the brainstorm if we feel like we need it. Well, that duress is pretty good. If you let the duress resolve, they're going to take the brainstorm. If you daze, they're just going to pay for it. So you can fire off this brainstorm here, but you know you're going to get minimal value out of it. So I'm just going to let this duress resolve. Alright, well, there's nothing we can do about that. The good news is our opponent has 3 cards in hand. Alright, so let's try to flip this Delver. Brainstorm was at least a good draw. So not only do we get to flip our Delver, now we can shuffle away this Fatal Push. So Fatal Push goes away. I think Brainstorm's going to go on top. I really would like to Thoughtseize here. But if we want to Thoughtseize, that means we have to shuffle away our Brainstorm. It's probably worth it. Alternatively, we can shuffle away the Wasteland and keep the Brainstorm. I think what we're actually going to do, as much as I want to cast this Thoughtseize here, I think I'm going to wait till next turn. Because I guess in theory our opponent could go something like Dark Ritual ad nauseum. Alright, never mind. I've convinced myself. We'll cast this Thoughtseize here. Yeah, that's funny because that's exactly what their hand is. Okay, Ponder's pretty good. These are also all very good. Okay, so we will draw our Death Shadow and play our Death Shadow. Our opponent just passes, which is good for us. And now we have Daze. Alright. That was a pretty nice little game one. Mulligan to 5, and we still managed to squeak our way out. Alright, so Dismember, Snuff Out, and the Fatal Pushes all get to get cut. We get to bring in Flusterstorm, 2 Hymnothorax, and our last card could be a Ratchet Bomb, could be a Surgical Extraction. Ratchet Bomb is a clean answer to empty the Warrens. Surgical Extraction is always on the fence. It's not great against the combo decks, or at least Ad Nauseam specifically. It's not great, but it's fine. It has some areas where it's okay. I'll bring it in if I don't have enough slots, but I don't always bring it in. I think everything else is going to stay here. The Reanimates are only okay. So we could, in theory, cut the Reanimates. We also don't know which version of Storm we're playing against at this point. It could be either version. So we don't know if they have Xantid Swarm in their sideboard. If we knew they had Xantid Swarm, if we knew we were playing against Tess, we could keep in our Fatal Pushes, but we don't know that at this point. Okay, so these Reanimates probably aren't good enough. Bring in 2 Ratchet Bombs and a Surgical. Like I said, those 2 Reanimates could definitely be the last 2 cards, but... Alright, we get the Mulligan again, get to go to 6. This hand is fine. We might sideboard a little bit differently for game 3 if we get there. Once we have some more information. It's kind of surprising. Our opponent was playing a lot of discard spells in their main deck. In that game, we've seen 2 Duress and a Thoughtseize. Normally you want to lead on Delver, but since we drew the Thoughtseize, I'm pretty tempted to lead on the Thoughtseize. The issue is this daze is probably not going to be good enough. Most of the time Storm can play through a daze, so I think we're going to fire off this Thoughtseize here. Alright, so their hand is pretty bad. I'm not quite sure why they fired off a Lotus Petal that first turn. So we're actually going to take this Preordain. So the hand only has 2 relevant cards. It's a Dark Ritual and a Lotus Petal. Alright, that's a good draw also. I think this one we're going to hold off on for a turn. This will give us a turn here where we can play Delver and Ponder to set it up for next turn. Alright, so we are going to keep this. So we're going to put Stubborn Denial back first, followed by Brainstorm, so that way we reveal the Brainstorm to them, and we get to draw the daze. And we get to play Delver. So we have double daze here, and then we get to Thoughtseize and flip our Delver next turn. And we know the top card of our deck is the Stubborn Denial, so we're going to fire off Thoughtseize. I think I'm going to wait a turn on this Brainstorm. Okay, so our opponent just has a Dark Ritual. This Wasteland's not great, but fetch an Underground Sea, that's fine. They're definitely not lacking on mana at this point. We knew about that Bayou. We will probably Wasteland that Bayou this turn, just in case they're playing Abrupt Decay in their sideboard. If they're playing Abrupt Decay, at least then we'll make them blow a Lotus Petal to cast it. But this turn I will cast the Brainstorm. It's a couple more Thoughtseizes here, which are excellent. So let's see, our opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana currently. We're going to waste them off the Bayou, which is going to take them down to 5. We know there's a Dark Ritual in their hand, which likely we're going to Thoughtseize the Dark Ritual out unless they have something else that's more valuable. Alright, so we'll put back Stubborn Denial and a Thoughtseize on top. Cast our Thoughtseize. Empty the Warrens. I guess we'll just take the empty here to waste the Bayou. So it actually might be reasonable to shuffle away this Thoughtseize. They only have one relevant card. So I think we're actually going to shuffle it away here. They're definitely not lacking in the mana department, so not worried about that. Okay, so our opponent drew a couple lands here. Good news for us. We get to cycle our Street Wraith. Force of Will is a good draw. So, pretty sure we can't lose this game from this point. I guess the easiest way for it to happen is if they draw an Abrupt Decay. It'll buy them a lot of time. Nope. Okay, that was a pretty easy match to start the night. Let's move right on along. So I currently keep switching around a couple slots in the deck that I've just been kind of toying around with here. I originally started with 2 Dismembers, and I cut the 2 Snuff Outs entirely. Dismember is actually very, very good right now. There's a lot of Gurmag Anglers in the format, so being able to kill a Gurmag Angler is definitely a huge benefit. Snuff Out, it has corner case. It has some scenarios where it's really good. I mean, it's great against Delver. It's great against Death and Taxes. But that's why there's a 1-1 split right now. They both have good utility in certain matchups. Those, I think, are probably the 2 cards that are the easiest to switch in and around. And you also have 2 Fatal Pushes. So, like, your removal suite is kind of where your biggest question mark is right now with this deck. I do really like the rest of the slots. This hand is pretty good. It's a little vulnerable to a Wasteland if our opponent has one. Alright, so it looks like we're playing the mirror match. Alright, so our turn 1, let's start with our Street Wraith cycle. We're going to shock. And I'm going to attempt to reanimate my opponent's Street Wraith. Alright, and you do want to reanimate your opponent's Street Wraith because it'll take them 1 card off of Delve if it's relevant for their Gurmag Anglers. This draw actually lets us play 2 Death Shadows on turn 2. I'm totally okay with them playing an end of turn brainstorm. Makes me feel like they might have kept a sketchy hand. They cycled a Street Wraith and didn't do anything, and now the end of turn brainstorm. It looks like they're trying to cast an early Death Shadow here. Another brainstorm is fine. Our opponent is playing the egregious mismatching brainstorms. If you're watching this video, please don't do that. At least play matching art. From a competitive standpoint, it actually makes sense because now I know he has two different ones. So if I Thoughtseize him and see two different ones in his hand and he casts the wrong one, I know there's still another one there. I do not care about this Delver at all. Alright, so we're just going to fire off both of these Death Shadows. Alright, so our opponent is currently at 13. If we attack with the Street Wraith, take them down to 10, that means they can play a 3/3 Death Shadow. Which is fine, because both of our Death Shadows are bigger, so we are okay with that. And if they have a Death Shadow, we can also Force a Will. Alright, so our opponent's going to try to force their Delver to flip here. They're definitely being very aggressive with their brainstorms. Alright, so they revealed a Reanimate. Okay, they want to Wasteland us, that is fine. And they are playing another Delver. So let's see. They're going to attack us down to 5. We get to hit them for 5, 6, 7, 8. If we Force a Will this Delver, that means they... Oh, see? There you go. The fact that we're thinking so long, our opponent knows that we have a Force a Will, so they just don't even want to... They don't even want to stick around. They just conceded the match, conceded the game here. It's amazing. The power of thinking. Okay, so what do we want for the mirror match here? We want 2 Ratchet Bombs, 2 Diabolic Edict, okay, so no Liliana, no Mark's Casualties, and these other cards here do not do anything. We're on the draw, so we're not going to want the hymns on the draw. We might take the Flusterstorm, but let's see what we want to cut. I'm going to cut the Snuff Out. The Snuff Out only has one target, and that's Delver, and that's it. So we're going to cut that one. We'll keep Fatal Push, and we'll keep Dismember. Thoughtseize and Reanimate are both still good. Stubborn Denial. So our other cuts here are going to probably be some of the counter magic. I think Stubborn Denial is probably the worst one in the mirror match. And then maybe a Force of Will. So if we do it this way, we can trim 1 Force of Will and cut the 2 Stubborn Denials. It's going to be hard to keep a creature in play. It depends on what kind of removal suite they're playing. So the Stubborn Denials are going to be harder to leverage. And then Force of Will is just mediocre. I guess the other option is if we want to cut a Force of Will for another Flusterstorm, which is probably fine, so we'll do that. Okay, this hand is good. We don't have a blue card to pitch the Force. It's definitely a slow hand. But we're on the draw, so... Alright, so they want to lead on a Thoughtseize, which means we're going to just fire off this Wasteland on the first turn. Now, if our opponent played a Delver, we're definitely not Wastelanding. We're going to start with a Fatal Push. But the fact that they didn't do anything to affect the board, we're going to just snap off a Wasteland. Ratchet Bomb is not a bad draw. Okay, looks like our opponent probably kept a one colored mana source in their hand. Otherwise, they're not playing Wasteland here. So that being said, I think we're just going to play Verdant Catacombs and pass. If we cast the Thoughtseize, we know they're going to blow up our land right away. Alright, so that is the last land that they have. So there's an interesting argument if you want to take, if you used to want to take your Thoughtseize, take your spot here with the Thoughtseize, because that's going to force them to Wasteland. I think we're going to wait though, because they could very easily be sitting on a hand with just like a cantrip. You get sniped a cantrip out of their hand, but we don't. The fact that we don't have, if we draw another land, we'll definitely play it. Okay, now we get to do it. Alright, so we get to cast our Thoughtseize. Yep, there's the Wasteland. And they brought Surgical Extraction in for Watery Grave. Okay, so this is a lesson. Don't bring in Surgical Extraction in this type of matchup. It's not good. Getting the Surgical Extraction in my Watery Graves is not going to win you the game. If you're playing against something like Temur Delver, it's fine because they only have 3. But the fact that we play Watery Grave and Underground Sea, it's not going to be good enough. So just do yourself a favor and don't do it. Okay, so I think what we're gonna take here, we're gonna take this Gurmag Angler. If they thought sees us, we don't care. The Angler is the only card that's relevant. And now we get to play our own Angler. And at this point, our opponent has no answer to it. Even if they draw a land, they don't have anything to deal with it at this point. So they have a Thoughtseize. They do get to Thoughtseize us, and they do have a couple Dazes in their hand. I mean, if I was them, I don't think I'm even casting that Thoughtseize because now this Gurmag Angler is a 2-turn clock. Alright, so we're not going to run this Death Shadow into a Daze. Alright, so that's it. Our opponent lost that match pretty easily there. Alright, so we're off to a pretty quick 2-0 here. Round 1, we got to beat a Nauseam Tendrils, and round 2, we got to beat a Mirror Match. Yeah, unfortunately, Surgical Extraction is a card that people just bring in too frequently, and they bring it in matchups where it's not very good. It's a card that, for whatever reason, people feel like they need to bring in just about every matchup. But honestly, there's very few matchups where Surgical is actively good. Stuff like Dredge and Reanimator are the only matchups where you really want it. Light from the Loam against lands. Those are the matchups where you want Surgical. Not in a fair matchup like this. Like I said, there are a few exceptions. If I'm playing against Temur Delver, sometimes I bring it in against Temur Delver. If you can Wasteland them off of one of their lands, like a Tropical Island, you can Surgical the Tropical, and they're not playing any more green spells for the rest of the game. So that's a little bit different than something like this, where you know you're playing a 2-color deck. Alright, so we're going to lead on Delver. It's very rare that you want to lead on a Thoughtseize, especially against an unknown opponent. Alright, so we're playing against Elves. Okay, so our first Delver gets to flip. So we're just going to go ham here. We're going to try to make our clock as fast as possible. Delvers are very good against Elves. That's one of your best ways to win. This next turn, we get to Thoughtseize and Ponder to set up our Delvers, so that way all 3 of them will be flipped. No thank you, I would not like to block. That is A-okay with me. Alright, so we're actually golden here. We get to flip all of our Delvers. They're all blind flips, which is tremendous for us. We get to Wasteland their Cradle and Thoughtseize. Our opponent's hand is a big old 0, so we get to take their 1 action spell. And we get to hit them for 9. let's cast our Ponder and see what we have going on. Alright, and we get a second Dazed for the Rubbins. Alright, so that was just a disgusting draw. The triple Delver, both of them blind flipped. That was actually kind of nice. I haven't had one of those draws out of Delver in quite a while, so that was nice to be able to do that to somebody. Alright, so the Elves matchup. We get to bring in 2 Liliana the Last Hope, 2 Ratchet Bomb, a Marsh Casualties. And let's see, anything else here? Diabolic Edicts are not going to be good enough. They have too many creatures. You're never going to be able to leverage this very well. Hymn to Tarax are not going to be good enough. This Flusterstorm might come in. Let's see how much we're actually taking out. So we'll take out the 2 Reanimates here. That's not the kind of game that we're trying to play. We need to be able to interact with them. And the best way we can do it is through our removal. These Stubborn Denials might actually come out as well. So we want Force of Will. Daze is definitely worse on the draw. So I think it's going to be probably the 2 Stubborn Denials, a Daze, maybe 1 more Daze. Alright, that looks good. I think that's the way we're going to do it here. Alright, this hand is pretty good. We have the turn 1 Delver, we have a Force of Will to protect us, and we have a bunch of cantrips to try and find our lands. So we will keep this hand. Our opponent wants the Green Sun for 0. Normally I won't Force of Will this, but this one actually might be worth it. You get to slow them down a lot. And sometimes they're really relying on this Green Sun. And if we can keep them slow enough to get to the point where we can leverage this Liliana the Last Hope, they're going to have an incredibly difficult time beating this card. Okay, so our opponent had another Dryad Arbor and a Heritage Druid. Oh, that's a heck of a good card to reveal against Elves. We got to reveal the Marsh Casualties. Okay, so we're gonna excuse this window, folks. This is our constant reminder to activate our windows from when they did not do it when they built my PC. And mysteriously, it always comes up when we're recording. Alright, so do we want to lead with Brainstorm or do we want to lead with Ponder? I'm probably going to lead with Brainstorm here. Or I'm sorry, Ponder. That way, if for some reason our top 3 cards do not have a land, we get to shuffle. Okay. So we get to put back Angler. Angler, Daze, and then I guess we're going to draw the land. And then it also allows us to play Delver. Okay, that looks good. Shuffle, no. Okay, now we get to play Delver. I'm going to take an Underground Sea here. We don't have a Death Shadow. We haven't seen one yet. I just don't want to go nuts with our life total. Our opponent's seen this Marsh Casualties, so they know that we're probably casting it next turn. Okay, so they're going to Glimpse. Alright, so we get to F6 here. They get to do whatever they want to do. If we had a counterspell, they know we would counter the Glimpse. fact that they played their Cradle could be a good sign for us. Normally they try to wait as long as possible when they're trying to combo off to play their land. Okay, so that's fine. They bounce their Heritage Druid back to their hand. Delver does not flip, but that is okay, because now we get our land to play this Liliana. So we're going to lead with Liliana so that we can kill this Wirewood Symbiote. Now if we go the other way around, if we play Marsh Casualties, we're only going to get to kill the Dryad Arbor and the Symbiote. They're going to bounce back the Visionary. So I think it's worth it here to play the Liliana first. But I guess in theory, so if we pass the turn, so let's say we kill the Symbiote. If we pass the turn, they're going to get to untap with Cradle, Forest, and Dryad Arbor. So they're going to have 1, 2, 3. Maybe it is better to play the Marsh Casualties. Because Marsh Casualty is gonna leave them with less mana going into this next turn. So that's actually probably better, the more I'm thinking about it here. So let's start with Brainstorm. Okay, so this lets us set up Delver for next turn. We'll put back Liliana. And then Brainstorm goes on top. Marsh Casualties our opponent. And we get to hit them for 4. Yeah, the more I thought about it there, I think it's actually better that we did it this way. Because now they get to untap with less mana. Heritage Druid is fine. And it looks like that's all they've got. Alright, so we get to flip our Delver with this Brainstorm. We are going to play Liliana the Last Hope. And hopefully that will seal the game for us. Liliana just gets to pick off every creature in their deck. That looks like an Abrupt Decay. Okay. Do they want to kill Liliana, or do they want to kill one of our Delver Secrets? Okay, Liliana down. Well, lucky for us, we know there's another one on top of our deck. Alright, so our opponent casts a Glimpse. They get to draw 1 card. Now they have 1 mana with Cradle. We get to draw a 2nd card. Okay, 2 more mana for Llanowar Elves. Another Cradle. Well, they're doing pretty well for themselves for not having any permanents in play at the beginning of this turn. To play another elf. To play some more elves. So it is possible that they can actually win from here. pretty amazing. Choke. Well, that's a good one. Alright, so next turn they get to attack us for 3, potentially 6 on the ground. I mean, we're dead to a natural order. I guess that's what we're hoping to fade. Alright, so we're going to cycle Street Wraith. Death Shadow does not do it. Alright, so let's attack with our guys. We get to send them to 1 and cross our fingers and hope we don't die. Fintorm Elves does not do it. Nor does Scavenging Ooze. Oh, they have the natural order. Okay. So I guess fair enough. I guess we're dead. Yeah, we were super far ahead in that game. I didn't think we were going to lose that one, but our opponent had that really good turn where they got to recover with that Glimpse of Nature and the double cradle. Okay, fair enough. We'll go to game 3. Alright, so does anything change here? I mean, him is better on the play. So is Daze. I think Daze is the one that's going to come in before we bring in the hymns. We could probably actually cut Gurmag Angler. Gurmag Angler is going to be a tough way to get through. You're going to have a really hard time attacking on the ground in this match. And we already have Delver and Death Shadow to do that. So I think it's fair to cut the Anglers and bring in the 2 Dazes. And I believe that is going to be it. I feel like this matchup is too fast for him. Because you can play a hymn on turn 2 and you can still die on the following turn. Alright, so we are on the play. This hand is average. I guess average is the word. So turn 1 we get to cycle Street Wraith and do 5 damage to ourselves with the Flooded Strand, fetch. So 5. So this is a turn 2 Death Shadow, but I don't think that's good enough in this matchup. We have the Wasteland for if they have the Cradle, but we have no other meaningful interaction after that. So you have no removal and no counter magic. I think this is definitely a borderline hand. Alright, I think we're going to throw this one back. We have a lot of powerful draws that we're looking to in this deck. Alright, so this hand is definitely better. We have turn 1 Delver and we have 2 removal spells. So this hand is definitely better than our previous. looks like our opponent is also thinking about their 7. Or for all we know, they decided to go get a sandwich or a drink or something while we were making our decision. So that's one thing that's kind of tough about playing online, is you really have no idea of knowing if your opponent is sitting there looking at their hand or if they decided to get up and go take a quick break from the computer. I know I do that sometimes. If my my opponent's taking too long, I'll get up and take a little walk. Alright, our opponent decided to keep their 7. We will keep our 6. The Death Shadow. We do not want the Death Shadow, so that will go on the bottom. I mean, I do kind of want it. It would be nice to hit a spell with this Delver. So I think we're going to bottom this Death Shadow. And then we're going to play Watery Grave untapped. We're going to try to get a blind flip on this Delver this turn. Okay, Forest Symbiote. Delver did not treat us kindly, unfortunately. It was just a land. Alright, so we're going to Fatal Push the Symbiote. Because if we don't, it just lets him bounce and save all of his other guys from removal spells. So you do need to kill the Symbiote given the opportunity. It's kind of similar to a Mother of Ruins in that sense. Sylvan Library is really good against our hand. Alright, so come on, we could use a Delver Flip. This is not a Delver Flip, so we're going to shuffle with a Polluted Delta on top. Alright, so now we can fire off a Brainstorm. We get to shuffle away a land. And so my first inclination here is to put Watery Grave on top and then put Dismember on top of that. You get to reveal the Dismember to your Delver, flip your Delver. You also get to play Wasteland, hit their Bayou, and then next turn you can fetch and shock and play your Death Shadow. So I think that's what we're going to do. So Watery Grave goes first, Dismember goes on top, play your Wasteland. We're just going to snap off this Bayou. So this leaves us with a nice little setup here. Get to flip our Delver with a removal spell. We also get to keep Daze, and we get to play a Death Shadow next turn. The Sylvan Library is actually kind of interesting out of Elves, because a lot of the Elf decks don't play this card. They chose not to take any damage. I will Daze this Visionary. I would prefer they did not draw any cards. Alright, so here we go, Delver. play our fetch land. Go to 12, play this Death Shadow, and hit you for 3. So this Dismember, we're probably going to fire it off on anything that they play. Just about anything. It'll make our Death Shadow bigger, and it's going to clear the way. So we have the potential to do 6 more damage to ourselves with this Shock and the Dismember. And they decided to take 4 off of the Sylvan Library this turn. Okay, so they're going to play Quirion Ranger. They're going to bounce a land, play the Forest again, play a Heritage Druid, that is fine. Now they're going to play another Heritage Druid. Alright, so here we're going to actually Dismember, so that way they don't get the 3 mana from the Heritage Druid this turn. So we're actually going to Dismember the Quirion Ranger. That cuts them off from finding a Dryad Arbor, because they can Dryad Arbor, chump block, and then bounce it with Quirion Ranger, so it gives them an infinite chump blocker for the Death Shadow, if they happen to have it. Alright, so let's see here. If we Shock, that'll make our Death Shadow a 7/7, which forces a chump block out of the Heritage Druid, so we're going to do that. Alright, so they have to throw away a Heritage Druid here. Now they're at the stage where they can no longer draw cards with the Sylvan Library. Otherwise, they're going to deal 4 damage to themselves and just take 3 off the Flip Delver. So I guess the only way they can afford to do it is if they have an Abrupt Decay in their hand. But this Death Shadow is currently just going to be an Abyss. They have to block it every turn going forward. An Elvish Visionary. That one is fine. They played their land for the turn, which was the Bayou. This Symbiote, I will daze the Symbiote. So we're going to be in the same position we were in last turn. We get to hit them for 3 with the Delver, and then they have to chump block the Death Shadow. And now we get to Wasteland the Bayou. So Wastelanding the Bayou still gets to keep them off of Abrupt Decay, so even if they find one, they can't use it. Or our opponent could go out on with some style points here, and they could just Sylvan Library and kill themselves. If they know they're on board, I mean, they have 5 cards in hand currently with the library, so if they can't do anything with the cards that they have in their hand, I would not fault them for just killing themselves with the library. I know I've done it to myself before. I fetched and I've shocked to intentionally kill myself to keep my opponent from having the pleasure. But they're giving it a nice long think here. This game we've had a good balance of threats and removal spells. They get to play a Fyndhorn Elves, and that's it, the way it looks. Okay, so they are setting up. It looks like that library was not very helpful for them. They could be lacking mana. The fact that they traded the Visionary instead, that'll give them an extra mana for next turn. So they definitely need to piece together some magic here. And they do not. Alright, so our opponent scoops them up. Alright, so we are off to a pretty darn good start here for the night. We are currently 3-0 with this Death Shadow deck. Round 1 was a win against Ad Nauseam. Round 2 was... what was round 2? Oh, a mirror match, that's what round 2 was. And then round 3 was a win against Elves. Alright, let's see what we've got going on here in the world of Magic. I'm going to pull up MTG Goldfish. We're going to check out last week's Legacy Challenge while we're hanging out here. Alright, so last week's Legacy Challenge, there was a 7-0 Ad Nauseam deck, a 6-1 Shadow, 6-1 Dredge, 6-1 Elves, and there was also 2 Grixis Delver decks. It's interesting to see Grixis Delver still, people are still around and people are still playing it. There's definitely a bunch of different versions. I mean, the deck's not nearly as good as what it used to be with Deathrite Shaman. A lot of the threat base is still the same. I mean, so you have 4 Delver, Pyromancer, True Name, and Gurmag. Those are all the same. But you're playing a little bit more of a controlling deck. You get to play some discard spells. Thought Seizes, Preordains, a couple more cantrips. I don't know. I've been very happy with this Death Shadow deck so far. So this is the 6-1 Death Shadow deck. So this guy's playing a Liliana the Last Hope in his main deck. And he cut a Street Wraith for it. That's kind of interesting. The rest of the deck actually looks like it's pretty much the same. The sideboard's got a couple tweaks. He's playing 1 Surgical and 2 Tormod's Crypts. I'm curious if there's a reason for that, or if maybe he just owned... I don't know if he owned 1 Surgical, or if he's actually intentionally choosing to play the Crypts. So he's also on the Ratchet Bombs. I do think the Ratchet Bombs are actually really good in this sideboard. Some of the cards that you're worried about the most are Chalice of the Void for 1. Which is the reason why Team Channel Fireball was playing Throne of Geth in their sideboard. Throne of Geth was pretty much specifically for Chalice of the Void, but Ratchet Bomb actually answers the card the same, and it doubles up in other matchups. So Ratchet Bomb is definitely the better choice of the two. Alright, so we'll hop in our match here. Let's see what we've got. Let's see if we can keep on a roll. Alright, this is a good hand. Turn 1 Delver, we have a Daze, we have a Dismember, and we have a Wasteland. So this hand is good. Our opponent is on a mulligan to 6. And that's where they're going to stay. They're going to stay on 6. Swamp Unmask. So our opponent is playing Reanimator. Unmask is targeting us. Alright, so the Gristlebrand is what they exiled. So we have no Chancellor to worry about, which is good to know. And they take our Delver. Cast a Cabal Therapy. So I'm actually going to cycle this Street Wraith in response. It's unlikely that they name Street Wraith, but there is a possibility, so I'm actually going to cycle the Street Wraith. Oh, that could actually work out really poorly if they name Brainstorm now. Alright, so they named Daze. Alright, so that... we are safe, at least temporarily. That could have been a disaster if they named Brainstorm. Which I do think is the card that they should have named there. I do think they should have named Brainstorm. Alright, so we drew a Delver, which is good for us. Our opponent is casting an Entomb. Gristlebrand, let's see if they have it. Alright, well they don't have the Reanimate. If they don't have the Reanimate, I think it's pretty safe to assume that the last card in their hand is probably either an Animate Dead or an Exhume. So that being said, I think what we're going to do here is see what happens with this Delver. I don't think we want to cast our Brainstorm here. We get to draw our card for the turn, and then we're going to play our Brainstorm from there and hope we can find some interaction, because we need to get as many cards deep as we can. Alright, so we're going to let Delver do his thing. Delver does flip. This allows us to cast our Brainstorm. Now, we did not find any counter magic, so I think we're gonna be on the plan of just hope our opponent doesn't have a reanimation spell here, unfortunately. I mean, it's I don't want to be sitting here crossing my fingers, but that's the plan that we have to be on right now. Alright, so I think we're going to put Wasteland back. Put back one of the Wastelands at least. Something like Wasteland, Brainstorm. Play our Bloodstained Mire. This allows us to attack and shuffle. So our opponent gets to fetch. Yeah, so they have an Exhume. Alright, so we are going to fetch. Let's see. Is there any reason for us to get a Watery Grave here? So if we get a Watery Grave, we go to 15. If they hit us with a Gristlebrand, we're going to go down to 8. That's fine. Alright, so we'll take the Watery Grave. This allows us to brainstorm. Let's see if we can hit a Daze. We did not hit a Daze. That is unfortunate. Alright, so we get to put back Wasteland. And the second card is irrelevant. I guess the only merit is if we want to put something on top to protect from a discard spell. Alright, so in that scenario, what would we like to protect? We can either protect Death Shadow or Stubborn Denial. I think we'll hide the Stubborn Denial. Alright, so Exhume is going to happen. We're also going to get back a Street Wraith. So our opponent can't go nuts here with this Gristlebrand. So they're going to unmask targeting us. Let's see what they decide to take. My guess is going to be Dismember. No, they take Death Shadow. Okay. And they get to reanimate our Death Shadow. Okay, that's fair. Alright, so how would we like to go about this? I think we're going to start with an attack. If we attack with Delver, we can attack with Delver and Street Wraith. If they don't block, we get to hit them down to 2. If they do block Gristlebrand on Delver, we can Dismember and then we can reanimate Gristlebrand. So I think my assumption here is that I don't think they can make this block. If they don't, they're going to be at 2. They can attack us with the Gristlebrand and Death Shadow, so that's 7. And then we can Dismember the Death Shadow. Alright, so I think that's what we're going to do here first. First things first is we're going to attack. Alright, they want to do it. Alright, now we get to reanimate Gristlebrand. Alright, so our opponent gets the Faithless Looting. They got to bin 2 lands. So they did not help themselves there. Another faithless looting. That one also put 2 lands in the graveyard. Alright, so opponent is attacking here, which is fine. So we get to trade off the board. We get to cast another Exhume. So Exhume gets us back either Death Shadow or Delver. Okay, so Death Shadow's a 3/3. So we get to walk in for 3 with the Street Wraith. That'll put our opponent at 3. Attack us back for 7. I don't think it really matters which one we take. I mean, I guess Delver could potentially give us a chump blocker for Gristlebrand if we really need it. But at this point, I don't think they have... The only answer they have for the Street Wraith is if they can bounce it with like a Tidespout Tyrant or kill it with an Ashen Rider. That's the only way they're getting out from under the Street Wraith in 2 turns. So if we take Death Shadow, we can potentially make our Stubborn Denial active if we can deal a couple damage to ourselves. So I think that's probably the way to go. Alright, so we're drawing a Wasteland. We knew the Wasteland was there. Let's cast our Brainstorm. So let's see, we can make... I mean, we can make our Death Shadow pretty big here. So if we put back Wasteland... Put back Wasteland, Reanimate. Play a Misty Rainforest. If we fetch and sack our Misty Rainforest, that'll take our Death Shadow to a 6/6. They don't know about the Street Wraith. So if we attack like this, they block this Death Shadow, we can eat their Gristlebrand. And then we have Stubborn Denial backup. So I think that's going to be the plan here. Alright, Force of Will is also a good draw. So we still have our opponent on 2 turns here, even though they got to gain the life, and we have counter magic here. The only creature that they have in the yard currently is that Gristlebrand. Dark Ritual is fine. We don't care about that one. Flashing back a looting is also fine. Lotus Petal is fine. And our opponent is dead. Even if they find something here, we get to counter it. Alright. That was a pretty cool game one. We temporarily had a Gristlebrand. Unfortunately, we did not get to draw any cards off of it. Alright, so sideboard, we get to bring in 3 Surgical Extractions and a Flusterstorm. And 2 Diabolic Edicts. Hymns are probably not going to be good enough. I think they're just going to be too slow here. Snuff Out and Dismember come out. 2 Fatal Pushes also come out. We get to cut 2 more cards. Might be the 2 Gurmag Anglers. So you definitely want all of your counter magic. You want your surgicals. You have Delver and Death Shadow as your win cons. You have Thoughtseize. Yeah, so we're gonna actually cut the two anglers here. I think my only other consideration that I'm looking at is you could possibly cut 2 Wastelands. But I don't think we need the anglers. So we'll submit it like that. Alright, this hand's pretty good. Our opponent's on a mulligan, so we're going to keep this hand. We have a fast Death Shadow, we have a Wasteland, and we have a Surgical Extraction for our turn 0 interaction. I mean, we're going to lose to their nut hand if they have it, but they're on a mulligan. They have no Chancellor, so that is a good sign for us. So this game, we're just going to go Fetch Shock, and get these Death Shadows into play. It's pretty rare to see the Reanimator deck not do anything on the first turn. And they also didn't do anything on the second turn either, so I think that's even more interesting. Three fetch lands and not doing anything. Not quite sure what kind of hand our opponent kept. Pretty unusual. Maybe they drew a bunch of lands here because it's pretty unusual that the Reanimator deck has this many lands in play. They don't play many to begin with. So they are Thoughtseizing, targeting us. This sounds ridiculous, but I almost want a Surgical Extraction one of our lands in the graveyard. Because if we do, it's going to make both of our Death Shadows 4/4s. I mean, if they Thoughtseize us, all they're going to do is take our Surgical Extraction anyway, and we're not going to get we're not even going to get anything out of it. So I think that's what we're actually going to do. Because at least Thoughtseize here is going to force them to take the Reanimate, which we're not using anyway. Like I said, if we let the Thoughtseize just resolve, they're going to take our Surgical. So I think that's what we're going to do. I mean, this is definitely the first time I've ever had a surgical extraction myself. But I do think it's actively correct here. Alright, so we get to fire off a Wasteland, hit our opponent for 8, and play a Delver. Alright, let's see what our Delver likes to do. It is a Diabolic Edict. That is a good one. So we now have lethal on board. Yeah, our opponent mulliganed. They must have kept a really poor hand. Alright, so we have a pretty spicy 4-0 right now. We are currently crushing people. So let's see how this last round is going to go. So I just want to flip back here to this other list. So the question marks of this deck recently have been kind of what you want to do with the sideboard. I did toy around with Bitter Blossom a little bit. I do like the Bitter Blossom, but it's a little awkward when you're trying to deal damage to yourself with your Street Race and your fetch lands, and then you want a Bitter Blossom on top of it. I think that was my biggest concern with the card. As much as I like Bitter Blossom, it definitely was a little awkward. Alright, so we get to play against Arkin. Arkin is a very good Legacy player online. I don't know what he's playing currently. It's been a little while since I played against him. This hand is good. We will keep this hand. For some reason, I believe Arkin is Stoneblade. It was like a blue-white Stoneblade the last time I seen him playing. Alright, looks like he switched it up. Underground Sea Ponder is okay with me. They did not shuffle. No flip. But we do get to Wasteland our opponent. So we get to start with the Wasteland. And then we get to cast Thoughtseize. Alright, so it looks like he's playing Grixis. We're going to take this Lightning Bolt. So I guess the biggest thing, so he's got a pile of cantrips and he's got a Spell Pierce. So we're going to see, hopefully he doesn't Wasteland us here. He's pretty far, he's already far behind. I don't think he's going to Wasteland when we have a Delver on board. So I presume it's going to be a land and a cantrip. I believe Arkin is also a streamer if anyone feels like checking out his stream. So we might be able to really get some work out of this wasteland. If he's playing Grixis, I don't think he can afford to fetch an island here. Must be exactly what he's thinking about right now. He's probably thinking about if he can afford to play around another wasteland. So our next turn, what would we like to draw? I think we're going to lean towards a Brainstorm. If we can find a Brainstorm, I think we'll be okay. It'll let us get rid of these 2 removal spells, which are not going to be great in this matchup. They don't play a whole lot of creatures. It's normally Baleful Strix. And if you're Fatal pushing a Baleful Strix, you're not very happy. But we might have to do it. Alright, so he's just going to fire off a Ponder. This is okay with me. I would like to flip with a Brainstorm. Oh, perfect. Look at that. That is exactly what we did. Alright, well, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble here. So we're really going to, if he doesn't have another land and he fires off this wasteland, we're going to be sitting here for a couple turns and not doing anything. So I think so here comes the wasteland. Now we don't get to cast any spells for a while. Firing off that wasteland there, though, makes me feel like that's probably his last land that he has in his hand, unless he draws one here this turn. At least we have a Force of Will to protect our Delver now. So that we know the top cut of our deck is a Death Shadow. This Delver, I think I'm going to Force a Will this Delver. Because if that Delver flips, we're just stopped cold. Alright, so now we're going to start drawing clear off the top of our deck. Alright, so we need his Delver to not flip. If it does flip, it's fine. We'll be okay if we draw a land. Alright, so he's just playing Grixis Delver. That is a land. That does qualify. This Dismember is a little painful. Alright. Get to hit him down to 2. Brainstorm. So he's going to Brainstorm looking for a land and a removal spell. And he misses. Alright, so we are currently up a game. Alright, so how are we going to sideboard for Grixis Delver? So we're going to want our removal spells. So at this point, we don't know if he's playing Young Pyromancer. We did not see that. We're not going to bring in him because of being on the draw. So as of right now, this is what we want to bring in. Ratchet Bomb, Liliana, Marsh Casualties, Diabolic Edict, and Flusterstorm. So cards we do not want. We're going to take out the Force of Wills. take out Stubborn Denials. And we get to cut 2 more. It might be the Reanimates. Or it could be 2 Dazes. So it's likely looking at either 2 Reanimates or 2 Dazes. I think we're going to take the Reanimates out here. Alright, let's go. Let's go get that sweet, sweet trophy. Yeah, the only thing I'm looking at here is we're on the draw. So typically a lot of people cut days on the draw. I definitely don't want to cut all of them. I don't like cutting days in the Delver Mirror matches. Even if you're on the draw, there's usually enough wastelands that are flying around that you can still leverage the card. And also it has some value if your opponent thinks you're siding out your dazes and you actually get to keep them in. Sometimes you can really get them. This hand is good. We're going to keep this hand. Alright, so we just get to fire off a couple Street Wraiths here. Let's see what's going on. So I think we're going to actually lead on Delver with this hand. We could also lead with Thoughtseize. I mean, Thoughtseize is fair. The fact that he didn't do anything on turn 1 could be a reason to lead on Thoughtseize if he has something like a Young Pyromancer in his hand. So I think that's actually good enough. Let's do that. We'll fire off the Thoughtseize. Yep, that is exactly what he has. Alright, so my guess is he's not going to fire off this Brainstorm here. It's possible that he's going to end of turn Brainstorm, but it's very poor, so I don't think he's going to do it. So I think here we're just going to take Pyromancer. We can at least fight through the True Name, because we're going to have 2 Death Shadows this game, so if he blocks one of them, we still get through with one of them. And we also have a Wasteland, so we get to keep him off of the True Name for an extra turn or 2. So I think it's right to take the Pyromancer there. Yeah, he chose not to Brainstorm, which makes me think he's probably just going to play at main phase. If he plays at main phase, that allows us to Wasteland, and we're going to play a Death Shadow. Well, actually, it's going to be a Delver. We're going to play Delver because we don't want to get our Death Shadow lightning bolted. Okay. Well, that's fair. He drew another Pyromancer. That's pretty good. Alright, so if that's the case, that's fine. We're going to Wasteland the Volcanic Island and play a Delver. If he wants to fire off Wasteland, we don't really care because we have another land in our hand anyway. And it also keeps them back a turn from this True Name that we know they have. So I think Wastelanding is actually good for us. Yeah, so Bolt the Delver, presumably Wasteland us. Yep. Alright, so we go to 10. At this point, I'm just going to get Underground Sea, Death Shadow. Alright, the fact that he found another Wasteland could win him this game if we miss on lands. Alright, unfortunately this Death Shadow is going to be on blocking duty right now. He found another land. I think it's our turn to find a land here. Alright, we're in the money. Alright, so we get to play another Death Shadow. If this resolves, I'm going to attack. If it doesn't resolve, we have to sit back and we have to keep our blocker back. The fact that he's thinking about it this long makes me think he's probably got a counterspell. Alright, Death Shadow resolves, which frees this one to attack. He chose just to take 5 that turn. He did not want to chump block. Brainstorm, that is fine. So now they have 5 power on board, so they can trade with one of our Death Shadows as it currently stands. One of the things that's interesting about this Death Shadow deck, just as a whole, is if you play a Delver Mirror, Death Shadow just rules the board. It's the biggest, baddest creature. It's bigger than Tarmogoyf most of the time. It can be bigger than Gurmag Angler. So Death Shadow is a card that these Grixis Delver decks do have a little bit of an issue with. I mean, he can chump block with elemental tokens, sure, but when it comes to the other creatures, they all get outclassed. Well, that Street Wraith was actually a really good draw. So before we drew the Street Wraith, I was actually going to just attack with both of our Death Shadows. If he wanted to gang block, he could kill one of them, which we're okay with. Or he could just take 10. So right now, if we attack with 2... you have to assume he's going to block some number. If he doesn't block, I mean, we could just cycle Street Wraith and deal on 14, which I don't think he's going to let happen. So we're going to start with an attack and see what happens. Alright, so let's see. If we just let this happen, he's going to take 5 and he's going to go down to 8. If we cycle Street Wraith, we can put him down to... we'll both be at 6. Alright, let's say Delver flips. If Delver flips, he can attack for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If Delver flips, he can attack us back for 7. So we're not going to cycle Street Wraith here. Now we can ponder and look for a land, or we can just play another Death Shadow. I think we're going to play the Shadow, because it's pretty disastrous if we go to ponder, look for a land, and we miss. Alright, so Delver flipped with a Lightning Bolt. If he has a land, we're just dead. If he has a red source, we're just dead to the Lightning Bolt. He's going to cast Diabolic Edict. Okay. So that we're going to sacrifice one of our tapped Death Shadows. He's going to hit us with just the Delver. Okay. We go to 5. So we know he doesn't have another land. Alright, so there is a Bloodstained Mire. Alright, so let's see. If we attack with both Death Shadows, he's just gonna chump with 2 elemental tokens. We can ponder. What are we looking for if we ponder? So I think what we're going to do here is I think we're actually going to cycle the Street Wraith first. If we can hit either a Ratchet Bomb or a Marsh Casualties, we can actually win this turn if he doesn't have a counterspell. So that's our out to win this turn. If we try to attack, he blocks and blocks. He still gets to attack us back for 3, 4, 5. So we can't attack. He's going to kill us on the crackback. If we just pass the turn, he's going to attack us for 3 with the Delver, and we're going to give him the opportunity to still draw a red source, and then we're just going to be dead to the Lightning Bolt. So we're actually going to cycle the Street Wraith here. We missed. Well, we did find the Ratchet Bomb. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little late. Alright, so it looks like we're going to be going to a game 3 here. Alright, this time we're going to be on the play. That game was very close. We had an out to win there that last turn, but we were just a little short. I'm actually not going to change anything here. The only card that's like I think is even really on the fence is the Hymn to Turok, but I don't think that's the way we're going to try to win this matchup. Not against the Delver deck. The other removal and everything else is just better. Alright, so we're going to go to game 3. Here we go. Alright, this is it. This is for the whole kit and caboodle. We wouldn't have it any other way. Going to game 3. We win, we get a 5-0. If we come up a little bit short, we're still going to get a 4-1, so this is still going to be a successful league either way. We will be on the play. And this hand is good. We are definitely keeping this hand. This hand is very good. So we have potential to make a very big Death Shadow very quickly. Okay, we are totally okay with that Delver. Okay, so we get to play a shock land. We get to pay 4 life and kill this Delver for free. And we get to play a double Death Shadow. This is basically a perfect opener out of us. We've dealt ourselves 11 damage on the first 2 turns. And we get to cover with the daze. Our opponent's going to have a very hard time keeping up with this. So they're actually just dead here in 2 turns if they don't have any meaningful interaction. Yeah, you got a Thoughtseize, my friend. You can have that Marsh Casualties. We're going to hit you for 12 and play our Delver. I can't even think of a card here that our opponent can play that would actually be relevant. No, that was just an absolutely insane hand out of the Death Shadow deck that last game. I mean, that's a perfect way to end the league. We get to end the league on a Death Shadow nut draw. We get to hit our 5-0, and we get a nice little sweet prize here. We get 16 treasure chests, 3 qualifier points, and we get our entry back plus an extra couple points. Normally, I've been saving these chests, but that was such a good league. I'm going to open a couple of them here for you guys, and we're going to see what we have. I've been in pretty much in the mindset of I'm not opening any chests. I'm not going to open all 29 of these, but I'm definitely going to open a few here. We'll see if we can keep running hot with this league. Temple Garden is something that is not bad. Not worth a whole lot, probably about a ticket or 2. I don't know what any of these cards are. Flying Crane Technique is nothing. This is an M19 Mythic. I'm going to have to check that one when we're done here. I honestly don't know what that card's worth. We'll open one more. Alright, well, unfortunately, those chests did not work out very well. But other than that, that was an excellent league. Tremendous showing, a great ending. And overall, that was a great league for us. If you're still sticking around, I do want to say thank you very much. We're going to be doing a lot of legacy content here on this channel. We're going to be doing some modern as well. If you liked what we were doing, please give us a like. Please give us a subscribe on our YouTube channel. That will help us out greatly. Other than that, I will see you next time. Thank you again for watching. Have a good night.